You are 6 years old when the Pontifex Maximus takes your hand and speaks the ancient words. He says, Te amata capio. I take you, beloved. Your father does not weep, because a Roman patriarch does not weep before priests. Your mother stands behind him, her stola perfectly arranged, her face a mask of limestone. You do not understand what is happening. You understand only that the tall man in the white robes has chosen you, and that your family is suddenly very still. 20 girls were considered from Rome's finest patrician houses. The lot fell on you. You were examined for physical defects, for speech impediments, for any blemish that might offend the goddess. You were found perfect, and so your old life ends on a Tuesday morning in a chamber beside the forum, while outside the market vendors sell garum and figs. They lead you across the Forum Romanum to the Atrium Vestae, a sprawling complex of rooms arranged around a courtyard with a long reflecting pool. You will live here for 30 years. The eldest of the 6 Vestals, a woman named Licinia, kneels before you and adjusts the white woolen band they have placed around your forehead. She calls it the infula. You will learn what this means, she says. Not today, but soon. Her hands smell of ash and emmer wheat. You will come to know that smell better than you know your own name, because the sacred fire of Vesta demands constant tending, and the grain called far is the essential ingredient of the Mola salsa. You will spend years learning to prepare. Your first decade of service is apprenticeship. You learn the rituals from the senior Vestals with the patience of a child who has no alternative. Each morning before dawn, you rise and walk to the circular temple of Vesta just steps from your residence. The temple has no cult statue. Vesta is present only as flame. The fire burns on a central hearth, and it must never go out. The Romans believe that if it does, the compact between the city and its gods will shatter. Famine, plague, military defeat, all of it held at bay by a flame no larger than a cooking fire. You feed it with particular cuts of oak wood, carefully dried and stripped of bark. If the fire dies on your watch, you will be stripped and beaten by the Pontifex Maximus in darkness behind a curtain so that no man sees your body. This has not happened in your lifetime. You intend to keep it that way. You learn to make the Mola salsa, the sacred salt cake that is sprinkled on every public sacrifice in Rome. In May, you and the other Vestals harvest the first ears of spelt from fields along the Tiber. You roast the grain, pound it in ancient stone mortars, and mix it with brine you have prepared yourself from water carried in narrow-bottomed vessels that cannot be set down. The recipe has not changed in centuries. The salt must be hard, cut in blocks, baked in an oven, then pounded with an iron pestle. When a consul slits a bull's throat on the altar of Jupiter Optimus Maximus, it is your flour and your salt that consecrate the blade. You are 10 years old and you have already become indispensable to the machinery of Roman religion. But the apprenticeship is also a kind of renunciation, though you do not yet recognize it as such. Other girls your age are betrothed by 12, married by 14. You watch them sometimes from your reserved seat at the gladiatorial games where you sit in the front row near the senators, a privilege no other woman in Rome possesses. You see girls in bright stole laughing beside their husbands. You feel something you cannot name. It is not envy. Exactly, it is a question forming itself slowly inside you. Is the knowledge of sacred things the same as truly understanding them? By your second decade, you have moved into the middle phase of service. You are now a practicing priestess, performing the rites independently. You draw water from the sacred spring of Egeria outside the Porta Capena and carry it back without letting the vessel touch the ground. You open and close the innermost storehouse of the temple, the Pinus Vestae, where objects are kept that ordinary Romans may never see. Ancient sources say these include the Palladium, a small wooden image said to have come from Troy. Whether you believe this literally does not matter. What matters is that you carry the weight of Roman identity in your hands, daily, in stone jars and oak kindling and flour, that must be ground just so your privileges are extraordinary by any standard. You can own property outright without a male guardian, a right almost no Roman woman holds. If you encounter a condemned prisoner being led to execution and swear the meeting was accidental, that man goes free. Your testimony in court requires no oath because your word is considered inherently sacred. You travel through Rome in a carpentum, a two-wheeled covered carriage, and lictors clear the road before you. When you pass, men avert their gaze. You're untouchable. And yet this untouchability is itself a kind of cage, one that gleams so brightly, you sometimes mistake it for freedom. You have a companion among the Vestals, a woman named Cornelia, selected 2 years after you. She is dutiful and gentle, and she follows the rituals with a devotion that seems effortless. She never questions. She finds peace in the repetition of the rites, in the smell of the oak smoke, in the rhythm of the liturgical calendar. The fire is enough. She tells you one evening as you sit together in the courtyard, what more could there be? You admire her. You also pity her, though. You know, the pity is unearned, and that it is really a form of your own restlessness dressed in borrowed virtue, because you are restless. The deeper you go into the theology of Vesta, the less you feel you understand it. You know every word of every prayer. You can recite the formula for the Forticidia, the Perilia, the Vestalia in June when the penis is opened and matrons walk barefoot to the temple bringing simple offerings of food. You know all of it, and yet knowing has not become being. You perform the rites with precision, but feel them receding from you, like water through cupped hands, and a dangerous thought begins to form. Perhaps the sacred fire is just a fire. This thought is the ember that will nearly destroy you. Not because the gods are vengeful, but because doubt in a Vestal is an existential crisis with nowhere to go. You cannot leave. You cannot confide in the Pontifex Maximus. You cannot seek answers outside the walls of the Atrium Vestae, and so the doubt turns inward, becoming pride. You begin to believe that you have outgrown the role, that the rituals are husk without grain, that 30 years of your life are being fed into a hearth that gives back only smoke in your 22nd year of service. A senator named Lucius begins appearing at public ceremonies where you officiate. He is not young, but he is clever, and he speaks to you with a deference that edges into intimacy. He brings you small gifts appropriate to your station, offerings of honeyed wine left at the temple. He tells you that your wisdom is wasted in seclusion. Rome needs women like you in its councils, he says, not hidden behind veils of smoke. You know, this is flattery. You also know that flattery works precisely because it articulates what you already want to believe. A wealthy merchant who supplies oil to the temple treats you with similar warmth, and between these worldly attentions, you begin to taste something forbidden. Not physical transgression, but emotional attachment, a life imagined beyond the sacred enclosure. And then one night in summer, tending the fire alone in the hour before dawn, you let your attention drift. The oak log shifts, the embers scatter, and for 7 heartbeats, the flame goes out. You relight it with the ancient method, focusing the sun's rays through a concave bronze vessel, as protocol demands when the fire dies. No one sees, no one will ever know, but, you know, and in those 7 heartbeats of darkness inside the Temple of Vesta, you feel something crack open in your chest. Not guilt, something worse. You feel the full weight of 30 years of spiritual discipline revealing itself as hollow as mere performance, and you understand that the worldly attachments you have been cultivating are no more real than the rituals you have been doubting. The senator does not know you, the merchant does not know you, you do not know yourself. You kneel on the stone floor in the relighted glow and feel a despair so total it is almost physical. A nausea of the soul. Weeks pass, you perform your duties mechanically. Cornelia watches you with quiet concern but says nothing. It is an old ferryman on the Tiber, of all people, who opens the door. You have gone to collect the sacred water from the spring, and he rows you across a bend in the river as he has done 100 times. You're silent. He is silent. The water laps against the hull. Finally, he speaks not to you, but to the river or to no one. The Tiber does not try to reach the sea, he says. It simply goes. You look at him. He shrugs and pulls the oar. You carry the water back. You pour it into the vessel. You tend the fire that evening with hands that tremble slightly. But something has shifted. You stop reaching for meaning in the ritual. You stop reaching for escape from it. You simply perform the act. You carry water. You grind grain. You feed the fire. And in the surrender of the question, not answering it, but releasing it, you begin to feel what Cornelia has always felt. The fire is enough, not because it is sacred in some cosmic sense that your intellect can parse, but because you are here and it is here, and the act of tending is itself a form of unity with something larger than understanding. Your 3rd decade of service is the teaching phase, and you guide younger Vestals with a patience you once would have mistaken for resignation. You tell them what Licinia told you. You will learn what this means, not today, but soon. You mean it differently now. You complete your 30 years of service and are released from your vows at the age of 36. You are legally free to marry, though most Vestals who do are said to live unhappy lives. You choose instead to remain near the Atrium Vestae in a modest house on the Palatine, close enough to smell the oak smoke when the wind turns. You die in old age in your own bed, which is a quiet miracle in a city where women rarely own beds at all. Your name does not survive in the major histories, but the fire you tended burned for another 3 centuries until the Emperor Theodosius extinguished it in 394 CE, and with it a tradition that had lasted more than 1,000 years.